Okay, so we are going to just wait for folks to come in and start the Q&A. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below, and I'll start getting to them one by one. Okay, so how do I manifest a celeb? He usually avoid girls. No, it's the same way you manifest any specific person, right? You assume that you are in a loving, committed relationship with them, right? And I think you are conditioning your desire, right? First, you elevate them by saying, okay, they are a celeb. And two, you place a limiting belief that this person avoids girls, you know. And those are limitations and conditions that you are putting on, your desires, to the point where you limit yourself, and delay what you want to get in, and yeah, and if you have a belief that you will not get him because most of the boys rejected you, then that is also an indication of like the wounds that you have. Limiting beliefs, and revision would be ideal, but if you look past that, if you don't associate with that past identity, I think you would really free yourself from all the negative, you know, um, beliefs that you have, and all the suffering you might go through as a result. So yeah, don't associate yourself with the old story, and create something new for yourself. And that's why revision exists, and that's why we have imagination to create new stories for ourselves, new narratives for ourselves, so that we can create something better out there. Yeah. And this recording will be on YouTube as well. um, I will be putting it out there so that you guys can rewatch the video to remember the points or everything. So yeah. And we are still doing the giveaway on YouTube, where when you reach 2,222 subscribers, like, one person will be getting a month of DM coaching from me for free. All they have to do is just subscribe and make it public and leave a comment, and they're automatically in. So we are still progressing towards that, and yeah, you guys can join that as well. So if you guys have any questions right now, put it in the comments, or you can privately send me as well. So yeah, we'll see. So far there's none. So hello, how are you? It's been a while since I did something like this. I think the last time was a couple months ago. So a few of you have been requesting me, like, when will you do a live? Apparently some prefer a live Q&A, whereas some people prefer more of that text thing that I do on Insta. So it's, I guess, a preference from people, but it's been interesting, like, hearing all the requests though. So I was like, okay, finally, let's just do one. And yeah. Okay, so the question is, manifesting celeb is same as normal person? This circumstance really don't matter? Do you have any stories regarding this? I personally don't. But yeah, I mean, one thing that I always tell people is that you can't depend on success stories to believe in something, right? The fact that you and I are even talking about the possibility of it happening means it already exists. You can't think of something that doesn't exist, right? So you need to stop looking at the outside world for reassurances and things like that, and really look inward to your imagination. And the more you do that, the more you're going to, manifest things quicker, right? And that's like the best way to do this is to trust the universe and to really get reassurance from your imagination. um, and even the whole idea of like a celebrity versus a normal person, that's a distinction that you are making in your head. Like being a quote unquote celebrity is just another it's just another job, really, right? Like why okay, so what, like a few thousand people, a million people know them? Like that doesn't make it a big deal unless you make it so, right? And you really have to, again, bring them down from the pedestal. It's just a job that they are doing, right? And they just happen to be well known for what they do for a living, and that's it, you know. And if you just kind of look at it from that perspective, and really put yourself on the pedestal, that would be the most ideal way to go about this. So really, and don't depend on external quote unquote success stories. There's thousands of them out there. To be very honest with you, I think the Secret Success Stories is a website where you can literally go and find success stories according to what you want. And even then, no one will be reassured enough, because the thing is, unless you experience it for yourself, you will never fully believe in it. So I always tell people, no amount of success stories out there is going to help you believe in something that much more. Because if you see, take any Facebook group, right? You will see this, where if a person posts a success story, the first thing they will ask is like, oh, what affirmations you used, what techniques you used, how long did it take you, and things like that. And the thing is, that shows like people just don't believe in success stories, or they're not fully convinced because of success stories. They need to experience it for themselves. So that's why, as Neville would say, like, try it for yourself. Yeah. Hi, how are you? Yeah, so the question is, you believe in Dr. Joe Dispenza teaching? Yeah, I mean, he's pretty solid. The way he kind of looks at things is a little different from I would say, how Neville or Joseph Murphy would look at it. His is more quote unquote scientific, and he is more analytical about it. He has a way of measuring things, and he has data to prove it. So I would say it's a little different, but it's just it's the same thing, right? It's the same thing, said in a different way. There's a saying for it. I can't think of it right now, but it's really, in a nutshell, it's the same thing. Whether it's The Secret, or whether it's Neville or Joseph Murphy. Neville and Joseph Murphy, they had the same mentor, so I guess that doesn't count. But if it's like Florence Scovel, for example, uh, there's a lot of teachers out there, and if you really sort of pick apart the like what they're saying and their core messages are, it's all the same thing. It's, if you turn within and focus on your imagination, right, whatever you need will come true. Whatever it is that you focus on will come true, and that imagination is the god that's within you. And that's it. That's all there is to it, right? Like, can you assume that your desires are already yours right now, regardless of whatever you see in the outside? And the answer is yes. Great, keep at it. And that's all there is to it. So the question is how to stay consistent. I have noticed that I can stay consistent for some days, only then I start looking for evidence in the 3D. Consistency comes when you have faith in the unseen, right? Like, you look for evidence because, one, you don't believe in the process, and two, you really have some sort of fear or doubt. You think logically. I always tell people, like, don't even think. Just stop thinking and live, right? Just experience it in your imaginal scenes. And if you can just do that, just experiencing it in your mind and just releasing it and going by your day, just taking it one day at a time, just experiencing whatever it is that you're going through for the day. For example, if you're eating something, just eat and not worry about the next day or what will happen in the next hour or something, right? Anything can happen. So like that's how I would take it, like be in the present moment, and just take it one day at a time. But when you are like, imagining something, like, like immerse yourself in it to the point where you feel it real, and then, as Neville would say, release it, and then just go about your day. And whenever you think about your desires, assume favorably, like don't like think about, oh, what will happen, how will it happen. You don't need to know that, and you wouldn't be able to figure it out. Like I can tell you right now, like I have met people that I wanted to speak with in an elevator randomly before, and I didn't even orchestrate that event happening. Like things will happen in the craziest of ways, from our perspective at least, when you just surrender and just go about your day, right? And I always say this to people, like don't think again, just take it one day at a time, experience your 3D for what it is, enjoy it, and enjoy the present moment for what it is right now. And in terms of consistency, I would say, like, don't treat it like a chore, right? Every technique is there for us to really remind that the end is already done. So if you can have some sort of reminder on a consistent basis that, hey, your desire is already done, then that's what matters the most, right? That's what you use your techniques for. And one thing that I always do is, whatever techniques that you use, one, ensure that they are simple to use, ensure that they are easy, and once you can just ensure that you don't need 1,000 different techniques. Hi Khaleesi, how are you? Thanks for joining. And once you can just ensure that, that's what matters the most, right? Like that it'll be easier for you to stay consistent in them, right? If you're using a lot of techniques, it's going to be harder for you. Use like maybe 2 to 3 techniques max, and just stay consistent in them. And that would be the ideal way to go about it. Says hi, wish you showed yourself. Yeah, I mean, my lighting isn't the best right now, and I don't want to be staring into a screen at the moment, but I'll definitely show myself, and I do show myself from time to time for sure. I'm doing good, Khaleesi. I'm tired giving on I'm tired giving on SP and wait, I am too giving on SP and all tired. What does toe means? I Is it you meant to say I'm so? No, that doesn't make sense either. You're giving up on SP and all tired. Okay, no worries, no worries. You're good. Yeah, I just want to make sure that I understood your question correctly. Um, so one thing that I would say is that if you are mentally exhausted, definitely take a break. There's no point in pushing yourself through something when you are exhausted, because that only adds up resistance. So I would always tell people, if they come to me like, oh, I'm exhausted, I'm feeling tired, I'm fed up of this, I'm like, take a break. No one's like putting a gun to your head and saying like, oh, you have to get this done right now. It's your ego mind that's kind of giving you a bit of a pressure there. But at the end of the day, you can be honest with yourself. Why did you start this journey in the first place, and what has changed? Why do you feel tired? And the most important question is, do you still want the same thing, right? And can you look past the 3D? That's another big one, because with some people, they look at the 3D way too often to gauge their progress, to see if something has changed, to the point where they get fed up of not seeing a visible change. There's always invisible change, right? That's why we always say there's always movement behind the scenes, but in front of them there might be barely anything happening, and that tends to frustrate a lot of people. And but there's no right or wrong answer here, right? Like, some people want to take a break, and they might move on to someone else, or they might manifest someone in general. That's totally fine. That's even the path of least resistance, in which I always like lean towards. Or some people might, find someone else that aligns more with them. So what ends up happening is either ways you win, right? So yeah, take a break. It's fine. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, because your well-being matters the most. No one's gonna know how you truly feel about something. So do what you feel is right for you. Lean into your intuition here, and yeah, that's the best thing you can do for yourselves. Yeah, so keep your questions coming, guys. I'll answer as many as I can. I think, yeah, finally, folks are tuning in right now. Okay, we have a private question. What would you say from your experience is the biggest issue people have when it comes to manifesting an SP? Biggest issue. Biggest issue is really, let me think about it. The biggest. Hmm. Because there are definitely a lot of micro issues that I can think of. If I were to say the biggest one is really, I would say having a 3P of sorts is a big one for sure. The fear that they might have a 3P is also a variation of that, but really it often involves another person. And so I would say the root cause of that is some sort of self-worth issue, right? So that would be the biggest one that I would say exists in people when it comes to SP, is some sort of a fear that their person might leave them. um, and that tends to stem from the classic stuff like childhood issues or previous relationships, etc. But that's the biggest issue, because one of the reasons why I leaned into creating a third party course is because, I'm so sorry for the noise, by the way. Let me just wait for them to go. What the heck are those? Okay, I think my neighbors are transporting like cats or something. Okay, anyways, so one of the reasons why I leaned into creating removing a 3P course is because when I looked at the data that I had with my past clients, one of the biggest issues, and this really surprised me, was some sort of a 3P issue. At least in the beginning they had it, or they manifested it in the middle, I would say. And really it's because of some sort of doubts they have, some sort of fears they have, that goes all the way back to childhood at times. And really that's one of the biggest ones. And you can also argue that they lean into the 3D way too much, and they tend to look at their SPs and try to gauge them, try to predict things, and oftentimes they do so in a very unfavorable manner, in a manner that is not in alignment to any of their goals. And that's one of the biggest issues when it comes to manifesting an SP, I would say. So I hope that answers your question. Hey, hi Dasit, thanks for joining. I didn't know you guys can join my live still. That was lit advice, man. Thank you. You're welcome. Okay, that's a question. There are so many people manifesting same celeb and calling them husband and wife. Why does that don't manifest? Okay, that's interesting because, yeah, sure. Some people say that, I can't think of a celebrity right now, but yeah, sure. Like every celebrity has a lot of admirers, and I'm sure a lot of people would fantasize them being their spouse or something, which is normal, right? But as you ask, and rightfully so, why doesn't that manifest? And it's because of a very simple reason, right? They are thinking of their desires and not from their desires, right? Like many people think of something, right? They would think like, oh, I wish it could happen, and they just fantasize about it, but they don't live in the end, per se. And they would think, oh well, if only things were different, maybe I could be with this person, or and they just reminisce it from the perspective of them never having it, right? So I would say that would be the biggest issue. I feel like I have so much work to do on myself that forget SP, just sit and cry about life. Okay, so the thing is, you see, we are always a, how do I say this? Like, I can't think of the words right now, Jesus Christ. We are always a work in progress. Yeah, that's the one. We're always a work in progress, right? And so you can't think like, oh, I have to be at a certain place to be where I would be quote unquote ready, or where I'd be finally be worthy to manifest something that I want. In this case, SP. I always tell folks, like, the very fact that you are here right now breathing means that you are worthy of all that you want, right? You can always work on yourself in parallel to whatever it is that you desire, and that's the way it should be. You will never be quote unquote like extremely perfect, and if you are aiming for that before you can even manifest any of your other desires, you're conditioning it. You should ask for your desires in an unconditional way. Everything should be unconditional in life, be it giving or receiving, right? When you give love to others, it should be unconditional. When you receive things, love, your desires, that should also be unconditional. We tend to condition a lot of things out there, and that tends to limit us big time. So it's all about receiving things unconditionally and also giving things unconditionally. So yeah, work on it in parallel, right? You can work on yourself, separately, and don't make it about SP, right? You're improving on yourself because you want to become the best version of yourself as you define it to be. And you can always work in parallel, in tandem with it, on your SP as well. There's nothing wrong at it. Okay, so there's another question. Toppers never have issue getting married. It's mostly backbenchers like me, maybe trying to heal. What is that word? TJO. I feel we create 3P, don't we? Yeah, I mean 3P is definitely something that is self-inflicted, like definitely due to doubts and fears. So there's that. But the toppers thing, yeah, then that's funny. I would say that's a limiting belief, because I always had this thing where average students or students who don't really do well in school, for whatever reason, they tend to branch out into many other things. They tend to open up much more possibilities because they are not so restricted by the system. So yeah, I would say it's a limiting belief right there. Maybe in your circle you noticed a pattern, and you kind of made that assumption. Nothing wrong there. We tend to make assumptions based on patterns. That's a survival thing that's sort of inbuilt in our psyche, I would say. But like, you should always remember that you can be the exception to the norm, right? Like in every sort of statistic, there's always like that number. Even if there's like a 99% people who will always end up in a certain way, there'll always be that 1% who will deviate from the norm in a good way. And so the question you have to ask yourself is, why shouldn't I be that deviation? Why can't I be the exception to the norm? And if you start looking at it this way, you would open up more possibilities for yourself in terms of like whatever that you're experiencing. Oh my god, okay, there's a lot of questions right now. Okay, I'm sorry, I've not scrolled through a lot. Okay, Khaleesi, you asked, what you manifest has to be in alignment with your internal state. Equals manifest. Most people just fantasize, like the seeker said. Oh, thank you, Khaleesi, I really appreciate that. Hi, great to see you live. Long time. Yeah, it's been a while. Hi, how are you? We create everything in our reality. Indeed we do. There are so many people manifesting seems, and okay, that I answered. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through right now. Please save this live. It'll be on my YouTube. You guys can check it out there. God's perspective is best and wisest. Thanks. Oh, absolutely. I mean, the higher self, the infinite intelligence, God, however you want to phrase it, the universe, it has a bigger data set than we can ever imagine. It sees from above, and that's a figurative speech, but you get the gist. And so, like, I would say that obviously, God will definitely know the best, and it's thus the wisest thing to do is to lean into our intuition and to just surrender, um, and to just go with the flow and really focus more on the state. I had a post written up and I'll post it later as well, that explores more of this concept, how to manifest losing weight. So it's interesting you phrased it that way, because that mindset there is more of the issue than the goal itself. So let me explain. Right, when you speak about losing weight, you see it as a problem that you need to tackle. If I were you, I wouldn't have asked like how to manifest losing weight. I would think of it more like, how do I manifest my ideal weight? Right, like how do I get in, manifest the ideal body shape or something. Because like this isn't a problem that we need to tackle, and that's the answer is just imagine yourself being in the ideal body weight, being like, what does your ideal self looks like, and just lean into that, and you will be led to doing certain things. Right, maybe you feel inspired to go to the gym, or maybe through a series of circumstances, you and a colleague of yours or a friend of yours go together, or you just happen to walk a lot more, for instance, or you just stop craving certain type of food. It'll happen in a very natural way that doesn't feel like a chore. So that's how I would go about it, is to really lean into just feeling that ideal body, and how does that feel, how freeing does that feel, and how good do you feel about yourself, and really leaning into that state would be the ideal way to go about it. Okay, so there's a question which asks, I'm reading it all out because on YouTube, when I save this video, you guys won't be able to see it, so that's why I'm reading it for context, by the way. So a question asks, a few people cheated my dad in business, resulting in a huge loss, debt issues, and false court case. How can I manifest him getting a lot of money, get rid of debt and this court case? Simply have an inner conversation with him. The reason why this happens is because, of whatever reason, like, maybe people had a fear of something, or they had a doubt or a perception. But if you start having an inner conversation with him and put him in an ideal state in your mind, right, where he is abundant, healthy, and happy, for instance, and he's telling you, or another friend, where like how happy and amazing his life is, and if you start like leaning more into that, and if you consistently hold this version of him in your mind, because everyone is here pushed out, this ideal version of him has to externalize itself as well. So yeah, all my beliefs are negative. Joker, I'm not sure what your point is there. My dad has open skull surgery, 4 months, due to brain tumor. I'm sorry to hear that. There's still 20% left to it. How to remove this 20%, like make it disappear through manifestation? Just imagine, his ideal self. Like, okay, 5 years from now, where is he? What is he doing? How are you guys enjoying life as a family? Just start thinking about it that way. And the more you do that, and if you start seeing him as the perfectly healthy version of him, as he ought to be, you're going to manifest that. And I can say this for sure, without a doubt and confidently, because if you know what happened in my personal life not too long ago, I had to, really intend that one of my family members was completely healthy, and I had to maintain that to see the results. So I can say that for sure. Like, focus more on the solution, not on that 20%. Just give gratitude for how healthy he is right now and how healthy you see him in your mind, and just hold that version of him in your mind as much as possible, and yeah, it'll be fine. Okay, so can you guys hear me? I have someone saying no audio. I hope you guys can hear me, by the way, because a person is like telling me there's no audio or something. Khaleesi, yeah, that's not a problem. Yeah, not at all. Don't worry about it. Oh, they say no video. Yeah, there's no video, but like earlier in one of the messages, like a person said like no audio, and that's why I was asking. Okay, so someone asked, okay, how's your like how magical is it? Oh, it's wonderful right now. um, life happens, because I'm going through school now and I'm busy with that, and the seeker of wisdom and clients and everything. So it's smooth sailing, right? And I'm grateful for the place that I'm in life right now. Um, yeah, it's been exploratory. I've been learning a lot, both for school purposes and also um, from a manifestation standpoint. I've been really on a journey of learning and growing and expanding, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful for the lessons I've learned this year, and it's been a test of faith. It's been a test of all that I've learned. If I'm able to apply everything, and it's been bittersweet. And yeah, it's an onwards and upwards journey here. But yeah, it's been good. Thank you for asking. Okay, so we have a question. How do we revise any situation? I lost some important call recordings 2 months back. All shops are saying impossible to manifest as per Google's policy. I really need them back, but I don't know if it's still possible given 2 months have passed now. Okay, so it's funny you mentioned that, because there has been cases where people thought they lost something, right? They literally threw photographs away and it appeared out of nowhere in their rooms when they had no copies of it before, right? So all that to say, if you can just imagine yourself accessing these recordings again, or you telling a friend of yours in your mind like, hey, I found these recordings, it was in another file or something, and you just being happy about the whole outcome, that should suffice. And yeah, I think it would be the ideal way to go about it. Okay, thanks guys. Thank you for confirming the audio stuff. Appreciate it. I'm sorry because I can't scroll down. I'm answering a lot of the questions above, so yeah, forgive me if I'm responding to your questions a little late, or there's a bit of a delay at the moment. Hi, how are you? Okay, so there's one more where, do limiting beliefs take a lot of discipline and fight to undo? I wouldn't say so. It really depends. If our life experiences have made us believe in something stronger, sure, but there's nothing that can't be changed. The biggest thing I would say is being open to considering alternative perspectives. With conscious manifestation, one thing that I see is that those who struggle aren't really open to the idea of manifesting things out of the blue, or manifesting things you know from through unexpected means, because they are so quote unquote logical. And I always say, like, unless you're open to it, you will always be constrained by the old story, and thus the limiting beliefs that sort of comes along with it, right? So it really matters like how open you are to it. I want to let go of my situationship. I stopped talking to him, no contact, but it still hurts. I want it to stop hurting and let it go. I mean, yeah, it's definitely a hard one to be in, position wise, and I can empathize there. The most important thing is to, one, really invest in yourself, your hobbies, and do things that makes you happy. And because if you're still manifesting this, right, which seems like you are to a certain extent, what I would say is, if you are manifesting it, like, know that this isn't the end yet. So take your time to like, pull yourself back up, give yourself a break, maybe for a few weeks or so, or maybe for a week or two, however long you need, and start the journey fresh. Like manifesting this person back, and also working on your self concept in parallel. Working on your limiting beliefs, and seeing where they stem from, and doing all of that, right? It's pretty standard stuff. But if you are completely moving on from this person, what I would do is thinking about, okay, whilst I was in this situationship, what did I put on hold? What did I delay, right? Because most people, when they are in some sort of a situationship or a toxic relationship of some kind, they tend to suppress a part of themselves. Like they really go away, turn away from a version of themselves that isn't ideal, right? So what I always say is, explore those things, right? Like, go and experience those things. Maybe you wanted to maybe travel somewhere, or you wanted to do things but you didn't because you wanted to be with this person, right? Go and explore those things, and really do things that makes you happy, to get away from this. And with letting go of a connection or mourning a person, give yourself that time, because it might take a bit of time, how depending on how serious that connection was. And give yourself that grace, and do it bit by bit. Start forgiving yourself, and eventually forgiving that person for showing up as that version of themselves. And yeah, it'll be fine. You're going to be all right. So the only thing is, be open-minded, give yourself that grace, and start working on yourself and doing things that makes you happy. Yeah. Okay, let me answer, because there are a few questions from the same people. Um, hmm. Okay, I'm making sure I wave to everyone, so that yeah. Okay, so there's one question in my private where it asks, third party threatened not to call my SP and his family also said same. I don't know what to do. Like, I don't understand why folks think that they have to do something in the 3D, right? I don't really like get where they sort of get this idea from, really, because if you think about it, requires no action or conscious action. If you feel like you have to do something in the 3D, that's your ego talking right there, right? And when people tell me I don't know what to do, like, do nothing. Like, seriously, like, just do nothing, and let your mind do everything. Let the universe figure it out. Let your subconscious mind figure things out for you. You will be led to do things in an unconscious manner. When I say do nothing, I mean do nothing consciously. Like, don't try to figure things out, and don't try to like, try and piece things together or force the situation. Because the thing is, when you try to force things, right, you tend to like get a lot of resistance, and it's not going to serve you, right? Like, in this case, when the third party threatened you and his family did the same, like, I don't know the context behind it, and it's fine, like, you don't have to get into it. Chances are you may have done something prior to kind of maybe force the situation, which kind of led to it. And I always tell people, take the graceful approach, like, instead of swimming against the river, go where the river goes. Go with the flow. Just focus on the ideal outcome in your mind, that is the union, right? And let everything else figure itself out. And you just take one step at a time. But all you really have to do is just assume that the union is already done. And if you can do that, everything else will fall into place pretty quickly. It's been 3 years and I got no results. Why this happened? Because I'm genuinely changing. If a pattern exists for years on end, it's because of a certain way of thinking, and if you can change that, it will change. Nothing should exist for more than a year, in my opinion, and I can say that boldly because people manifest in weeks. People see quantum shifts. If something has been existing for years on end, it's really because of a certain thinking pattern, and I can say that confidently after years being in this space. And even in my own life, right? Like sometimes I take years to manifest certain things, and I'll be the first one to admit. But I also acknowledge that like certain times it takes for years for me to overcome certain things, limiting beliefs. But obviously over the years I've gotten better at it, and I'm thankful for it. But if something is taking years, it's because of the fact that we have a certain belief that we are still holding on to, basically. Okay, so there's a question: how do I work on self-concept? Like routine, I have pretty good self-concept, but I need to get more better. Self-concept. So the first question I probably have is with regards to what? Because we have different self-concepts with different areas of our lives. But routine-wise, it's not, self-concept isn't about routine. It does help. I would say to a certain extent it does help. Like when you do things out of your comfort zone, even if it's to a small extent, it helps to boost your confidence. When you do things out of your comfort zone, it definitely boosts confidence. But self-concept in a nutshell is all about how you perceive yourself in regards to a certain area of your life. And in order to improve it, you see yourself being better at a specific area. And you don't have to do anything in the 3D. You just see yourself being a better performer. You just see yourself being praised for a certain thing. And you see yourself being a subject matter expert in a certain area. And if you start seeing yourself as that person in your mind, because everyone is you pushed out, because you are maintaining that psychological state, it has to produce a physical fact in your reality. So that's what I would do. And the more you stay in that, the more you perceive yourself in a high regard, you're going to see better results there. And it has to come from a genuine place, because you can't bullshit yourself, right? You can't lie to yourself. So you have to start looking at your strengths and how that is a big deal. And you have to just see all your achievements from maybe say childhood till now, to really like boost that confidence, and that would really help. So those are some things that I would do to improve the self-concept. And the subtleties of it varies depending on what area you're working on. Like maybe if it's based on your SP, self-concept with regards to your SP, that would be different from working on your self-concept with regards to say job or something. But the core concepts remains the same. Okay, so I'm showing daring of assuming wish fulfilled, and I am today even revising the situation. How do I change this? I am fully done with these crap situations. Imagine better and stay in those situations. Like, don't give in to what you see in the 3D. So that's it. Okay, I'm just waving to everyone. Hi guys, thank you for joining. If you guys have any questions, feel free to tune in. Okay, let me just scroll up. There's a big of a backlog of questions, I suppose. I really feel bad about my past and insecure about this past. How to stop thinking about our pasts and focus on the now. I don't do consciously, but unconsciously. Revision is the key. When we say talk about the past, present, and the future, we are doing it in quotation marks because that's how we experience time. Numerous teachers like Bashar and many others, I believe Neville as well, have spoken about time being a human construct. It's not something that really exists. The past, present, and the future exist simultaneously. So that's to say, there are also different permutations of everything, right? Like there are infinite parallel realities. And so the so-called past doesn't really exist, um, in the sense that it like, time is an illusion, number one. And number two, you can always pick and choose another different past, right? That's what revision is. So you can pick a past where things were better for you, circumstances were better for you, and you can, every time when you are tempted to think about the quote unquote past that happened to you, you can think of something alternate instead, something more pleasant. Like the best example I can give is, like, let's say a person grew up poor and has limiting beliefs about money. One way to revise their past would be to, for them to, imagine, from childhood till now, of them growing up rich, right? Growing up in a mansion. And by doing that, what they're doing is they're aligning themselves to an alternate past, which was much more favorable. And when they do that, they tend to attract a quote unquote future based on the revised set of events. So that really helps. Okay, so weight loss equals write down your beliefs about yourself, body image, food, etc. See where your issue is, your negative core beliefs about it, then turn that into positive statements like I am always fit. That is very true. I love my body, important. People always compliment me on my slim figure. It's easy for me to stay slim. I can eat whatever I want and stay the same. That's very true. And I agree with you. Thank you for sharing that. I truly appreciate it. Like, take note of this, guys. If you guys are on this live right now, screenshot that, save it, because what she has said here is 1,000% true. Tasks to help us increase self-concept. So one thing, again, go out of your comfort zone from time to time. Like one example I can give is, let's say you're in an office building, you take the elevator, right? When I was working in an office, whilst I was in the army, like I would, usually I would take the elevator because I think my office was on the 3rd or 4th floor. And at one point I was like, you know what, I'm going to take the stairs instead every day. And I remember like my self-concept like started to change, funny enough. And I didn't do something drastic there, mind you. I just took the stairs daily. But because I pushed myself out of my comfort zone, even if it's in a very minute way, it started to make me feel different. I cultivated a genuine sense of self-respect and admiration for myself. I was like, not bad. Like, I applaud you for doing this. You didn't do the easiest thing there. You did something that's outside of your comfort zone. And I noticed that shift in me. And so I started doing like little things like that, like every time. If let's say I'm tired or something, like if I have to be consistent with a specific routine, I push myself, and that increases my self-respect. So I would say doing things that are slightly out of your comfort zone would be ideal. Doing something consistently is something that really boosts your self-concept, because when you stick to something, like whatever it might be, on a daily basis, I don't care if it's like 5 push-ups or writing down affirmations or doing something with regards to your work, whatever it might be, when you do something consistently, you're going to develop a strong self-concept with regards to that specific area. So consistency is key there. Thank you so much for all your answers to my questions. You're welcome. Really grateful. How to manifest a dowry-free marriage and how to recreate someone. It's funny. Yeah, like I would say just focus on the ideal marriage, and if it matters to you that much, you can hear the groom side like saying explicitly, "Oh, we don't even want that. We just want your daughter," something like that. Like you know how it rolls. Does that even still exist in India? Like, I'm really surprised that you asked that question, by the way, because I was under the impression like that's long gone. And okay, how do you recreate someone? Hold the ideal version of them in your mind. Come up with different qualities. Make a list of it. What would you like these? What would you like to have in this person? Like qualities wise, how do they make you feel? What kind of words do they use with you? And start having inner conversations with them. Imagine them more often, and think of the 3D version less and less. And the more you give importance to the ideal version of them, the more they're going to manifest, right? Because everyone is you pushed out. It's crazy how I simply cannot gain weight. I was always slim. My friends admire me for my fit body. Food is nourishing and good for me. These are great affirmations, and I'm assuming like because I know this person, like she's also like saying it as a statement, but again, screenshot these statements, guys. Like these are great affirmations as well. Oh, one last question. How to be more confident in my skin tone and not to compare myself with others and get insecure? People say self concept issue, but don't know how to improve my self concept. As someone who's brown skin, who had self concept issues with regards to it, even before I knew the word what self concept was, like I used to be very insecure about my skin color when I was a kid, because mind you, I grew up, pretty much in a place where people are much fairer than me, like 90% of the time, I would say. And I guess the best thing there is to just accept yourself, right? Like it's not something that makes you inferior or something. Um, Embrace yourself, love yourself, give love to yourself. Self love is the key there, you know. And the more you love yourself and the more you accept yourself, people are going to also reflect the same thing to you. And once I started to address that issue within me, like now that I look back at it, once I stopped that, like people stop remarking on my skin color as a thing. And if anything, like even when people do comment on my skin tone or something, for some reason, whatever it might be, it doesn't affect me. I'm like, it just bounces off of me, right? Like it's nothing. It's really to be confident in yourself. Oh my goodness. Okay, there are a lot of people. Yeah, I'm just gonna wave to all these people. Sorry if I don't wave at you guys immediately, by the way. Thanks for joining, because yeah, there's a lot of backlog here. So yeah, I'm just trying to wave to as many folks as I can prior. Okay, I don't do live requests to be in my videos, so yeah, like I think one of you have sent that to me. Is conscious manifestation equals mindset shifting, changing? That's a good question. I would say yes and no, because it definitely is a part of it, but it's also picking and choosing an ideal outcome that you want, right? Like what you deem to be ideal, something pleasant as well. So it's more like picking and choosing experiences that you want. So is that mindset shifting? Yes, like because it takes a different mindset to even choose something better for yourself. So yes, in that sense, but no, in the sense that that's not the only thing. Like it's also about feeling it real right now, regardless of what you see in front of you in the 3D. So it's a bit of both, I would say. It's a yes and no there. Mine and his birth date is 8. The year I got to know him counts up to 8. There are so many things concerning us related to 8. What's this? Funny you say 8, because like 8 is a significant number, at least in my head, for me, in my own reality as well. So funny that you mentioned that. um I would say from a conscious manifestation perspective, things are inherently meaningless. We give meanings to everything. So in this case, give it a good meaning. Give it a good meaning. What meaning would you like to have? Right? If you say, oh, we are meant to be together because of all these, numerology aligning, then your reality has no choice but to accept that as the rule of your reality. So make that a favorable assumption in your head. I'm unable to pass a professional exam since a long time. Please guide how should I think about it. I just appeared for it a couple of weeks back. Go beyond it. Go beyond it. Imagine yourself already being in that career, and look beyond this exam, and you will either find the exams easier, or you will find a way to circumvent it, or you will just find a opportunity to prepare better for it. Like either one of those things will happen. I can say that from experience. And about number synchronicities, okay, so this is about the earlier question. My friend said you see more synchronicities when you are in alignment, but don't focus on them because you create more signs. Always focus on the end. She's true. It's funny because this person and I had a similar discussion. And yeah, as a coach, it takes a lot of guts to be transparent with your story. I'm so happy you shared with us. Heads off, such a genuine coach. Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely not something that I do often. I keep a lot of things to myself because truth is, there's a lot of faceless accounts. There's a lot of things out there that I'd rather not put out. But if I try to share a bit of my life so that to show one, I'm living the things that I do preach, and two, to also inspire folks, I guess, and to remind folks not to give up on their dreams. Is it okay to take action in 3D, like calling first, but then I always feel like I am the only one taking actions? I would say don't. The best thing to do is to let them come to you, because that way you know for sure that it was your manifestations that brought in whatever that you wanted, rather than it was your actions that manifested it, right? So yeah. So my friend said, like, only if it feels natural taking action. If you're unsure, then no. That comes from lack and the fear of having to do something in order to make things happen. So no. Yeah, I agree with her 100%. Okay, so I have a private question. What is the difference in feeling it real and living in the end? I feel people still confuse these. Okay, so feeling it real is basically, for me at least, a state, right? And the way I would see it is, you can feel anything real. It doesn't just necessarily appear only point to the good stuff, so to speak, or the stuff that aligns with us, right? When you feel it real, that can apply to anything. It can be your fearful thoughts. You can feel it real as well. You can feel the favorable stuff in a real way as well. So I would say the definition of it is quite broad, but for me, what feeling it real is, it's something that is in motion, in the sense that when I'm feeling it real, like I'm imagining a specific desire, right? I am going through the motions of it in my imaginal scenes, and that's why I'm feeling it real. It's happening, right? Whereas living in the end, I would say it's a much more of a peaceful thing, in the sense that it's more stationary, it's more calm. It's a state that doesn't necessarily involve imagining. It's more of a knowing that we have, right? It's more of, yes, I already know it's a done deal, and I'm about to go into my life knowing that it's already done. So it doesn't really involve imagining. I can go into the 3D knowing that my desires are done, and that's living in the end for me. So feeling it real, I would say it involves more of the imaginal scenes of sorts, but living in the end is more of that knowing that I have, even as I go through the 3D. I could be doing the dishes and like living in the end, because I know that my desires are a done deal. So I guess you could say feeling it real is something that we do whilst we are in our imaginal scenes. Living in the end is what comes after, once you know that it's already done, once you know that it's a promise that's already been made to you. So that's how I would view it. But yeah, I would love to know your views on it as well. Okay, so being rich and loved without action, just imagine it, envision it, don't condition it. That would be the best way to go about it, really. Okay, so how to forgive myself for the mistake I did in the past, and to forgive others who hurt me. Look into the Ho'oponopono prayer. I also have a forgiveness meditation. Forgiving yourself, practicing empathy, and you did what you did with the knowledge you had at that point. If you're looking at it from the 3D perspective, that's how I would view it. Struggling with perfectionism and hypersensitivity. that comes from a few things, right? The ego mind, wanting control, um, and a lack of trust that things will fall into place in the most perfect way possible, right? So it's more of like letting go and surrendering to the higher self, I would say. That would be the ideal way to go about it. I don't want to work. My mental health is too bad for that. I'm going to assume I'm rich, but reality challenging me. I mean, yeah, like I always talk about this story of this lady who manifested like the $2,500 for the rest of her life. She was like 55 and she just leaned into the, isn't it wonderful? Something amazing is happening to me feeling on a daily basis until she manifested like a steady income for the rest of her life. So, yeah, it's definitely possible. I mean, let's face it, like, who wants to work, right? No one wants to work. So, and I get that. Like, I think we weren't designed to. I was just talking about this with a friend as well, right? Like the idea of like us not being designed to work and go through the pace of life at the way we do.